Hi, Michael. It's a pleasure to meet with you today to talk about your latest book about a little-known agency called the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA. And I have to say I loved your title, the Department of Mad Scientists. And so my first question to you is, your professional focus was really been more on topics such as space exploration and launch vehicle technologies. What drew you to write about DARPA?
That's how I got interested, because of the space connection. I found out during the course of my research for a previous book, it was about commercial space flight, that there was this thing called DARPA out there that was funding some innovative propulsion projects and rocket projects and things like that. So that got me intrigued, and I came back around to find out after I finished that other book, well, what exactly was this DARPA thing? And the more I learned about it, the more interested I got, because it turns out that DARPA actually started out as the U.S. space agency. It was the first space agency. It was, touted that way in the newspapers with great fanfare. It was a direct response to Sputnik. The Soviet Union, of course, launched the first satellite in 1957, and the Eisenhower administration wanted a quick response, something they could do quickly to capture the high ground in space. And that response was then called ARPA. It's the same agency. It just didn't have the D for defense, but it was always part of the Department of Defense. And they got going. They got a good running start, months ahead of NASA, which was formed later, and in fact started a lot of the projects that NASA then took over.
So I want to go back to that issue a little later, but I want to touch upon some of the case studies that you cover in your book. And you focus on a number of truly ambitious innovations, such as the ARPANET, which was the precursor to the Internet, and the Global Positioning System, or GPS. And then you go on to really true kind of science fiction issues like mind-controlled robotic arms and autonomous cars and a robotic surgical suite. And I realize you only had access to 50% of what DARPA does, and these all have obvious military and civilian applications. But what about the more kind of lethal weaponry? Didn't it kind of cross your mind that if they're able to do this, what else are they doing?
For sure. I mean, absolutely. They are working on all kinds of nefarious things, I'm sure. But as you said, I was only given access to about half of what they're actually working on. The rest is classified. I can guess at some of the things based on glimpses I've got, programs that were formally classified now or not, or at least their existence is known, if not the details. They're really trying to find things that, technologies that will really give an edge that no one else has. So that's the mission of DARPA. Right. Along the way, they've created some amazingly useful technologies that we all use in our everyday lives, but really their first mission is to the military. What edge can we give the military? And that does include weapons, but it also includes communications, computers, information technology has always been a huge part of what they've done, at least since the early 60s or so. But glimpses that I got, things such as bullets that can fly themselves, it's a very small
really?
Guided missiles, essentially, that you can fire from a gun. Weapons that can target a sniper, so it hears the sound of a sniper bullet, can automatically track that sound, aim for a soldier who might be traveling in a vehicle, something like that. So those things are out there. But partly because of the fact that so much was hidden, but also because my mission really was to try to find things that would be of use to the civilian world. Right. So while I touch on some of those other things in the book, I'm really trying to find the things that might change the way you and I live in the future. And starting with the Internet. It was called ARPANET. This was the DARPA-funded project that became the Internet. And I thought, well, that's just had a huge effect on the way we live. I mean, my own lifestyle would be totally impossible without it. I live in a small town, 100 miles away from the nearest big city. I can interact with people all over the country, all over the world. So I wanted to find things that were perhaps as transformative, had that potential. And I found a few of those projects and really just wanted to really hone in on those. what are the implications of this technology? How did they get started? Whose idea was it? Whose crazy mad scientist idea was that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what was of the case studies, which was your favorite and why?
Well, aside from the internet, I really am very excited, intrigued by autonomous vehicle technology. I mean, the military wants autonomous vehicles to keep soldiers out of harm's way. And the genesis of the project was in 2003 with the beginning of the Iraq War, and a convoy was ambushed,
Right.
Soldiers kidnapped, killed. Some people at DARPA looked at that and they thought, well, this is crazy. Why were those people even in danger? We should have vehicles that can drive themselves and give them a coordinate, let the vehicles go. That was the genesis of it. But because of the way DARPA operates, is they bring in players from private industry, academia, all kinds of places, not just the Department of Defense. They bring all kinds of players in who can then take those technologies and bring them to the mainstream. To make them a part of our lives. And autonomous vehicles is definitely there, and we're really heading in that direction where you can just get in your car, tell it, take me to Bob's house, and you can just recline, take out your phone and read the paper, just take a nap, get on the phone, do texting, whatever you want. All these things today that we hear about of being so dangerous.
Right.
New laws being passed all the time by the states, no texting while driving, no handheld phones. These things are really not going to do a lot to stop that behavior. I think it's really going to be the technologies that save the day. A car is aware of itself in its surroundings and perhaps even networked with other vehicles on the road. So, it knows what to expect. It knows who's going to be at that next intersection, where that car is likely to go. All these kinds of things. I mean, could have tremendous uses for everyone, and especially, I think, for baby boomers who are now, a huge part of the population is starting to get to the age, where they might have trouble seeing at night, they might have some difficulty driving. Yeah, my parents, a neighbor of mine recently was in an accident. It was just herself, ran into a guardrail. I have no idea what happened or how it happened, but she is an older person. Perhaps an autonomous vehicle could have kept her out of that accident.
Right. But you note at the end that the public has to be somewhat spoon-fed these technologies. I mean, do you think the public is really ready for some of the innovations and breakthroughs that DARPA is doing the research on?
Yeah, no, that's a really big part of the equation. Is the human factor there. Okay, we have this technology that lets a car drive itself. What does someone actually want their car to drive themselves? And what implications does that have for privacy? I mean, if this thing is networked into a municipal system that's tracking cars, does that system know where I am or where I'm going? And can someone access those records? There's also the fear factor. We've just seen Toyota have a huge backlash against vehicles that apparently accelerated by themselves or wouldn't stop accelerating. These are electronic systems that have potential to go haywire. And imagine a car that's operating autonomously and you're snoozed out in the back. You may not be prepared for some kind of malfunction like that. So there's some fear about that too. I think ultimately though, just as we've seen the barriers for automation and information technology sort of fall away as people find it more and more convenient. I drove down here from New York State, 7-hour drive. All along the way, toll roads. I have a easy pass in my car that just lets me drive right through without having to stop and give somebody change. I know the system is tracking where I'm going.
Exactly.
That's a potential, invasion of my privacy, but I don't care because it's so much more convenient to just whiz through there instead of sit for 20 minutes waiting for a toll booth. And I think that's going to appeal to a lot of people and will start to erode people's resistance.
Well, I agree, and I can see that because you're seeing that in other social media with Facebook and Twitter. Where people are more than willing to share information, even when you buy groceries and using your discount cards. But kind of let me kind of flip that a little bit and kind of turn this around? Because the urban challenge was my favorite chapter as well, I have to say.